As Khalid's feet fell rhythmically on the cool, dry sand underneath 0K's camel-named Nightingale, they moved silently through the vast sea of stars that stretched above them like a canopy over their heads in this serene desert night. The air was crisp and carried only whispers from distant lands, yet here he sat beside T. Lawrence on Nightingale's back, feeling both alienated by his foreign friend's presence and united with him through the common purpose that hung heavy between them like a shared secret in their breaths, to free Arabia from its Turkish rulers during these tumultuous times of war. The moon was just beginning to rise above the dunes, casting an ethereal glow across Khalid's face as he leaned back against his saddle pad and closed his weary eyes for a moment before opening them once again with T's voice in their ears, gentle but persistent like water trickling over pebbles at the bottom of the desert wellspring. "Khalid, my friend," Lawrence began softly, as if trying to soothe Khalid's restless spirit even before it stirred into motion with his words. "We have plans for tomorrow that could change everything, our very lives." His voice carried a strange mix of excitement and gravity. Something about this plan felt different, yet all too familiar, like déjà vu wrapped in the mysterious silence between them under these same stars years ago, when they first met while working together against Ottoman forces. Khalid lifted his gaze from Lawrence's face to meet it with a sense of quiet resolve that had carried him through many battles before, though none so close as this one, where he felt not just the heat beneath their feet, but also an unspoken understanding growing stronger between them, two men forging alliances amidst chaos and uncertainty. "The railway is our target," Lawrence continued without pause or hesitation, while Khalid watched his companion's hands as they moved across Nightingale's back, stroking the dappled skin beneath their saddlebags, where precious maps were hidden from enemy eyes by this very gesture of friendship and camaraderie. "Tomorrow night we strike at dawn, a surprise attack on Derar station that will sever supply lines." Khalid felt his heart swell with pride, knowing well how important disrupting such lifelines could be in turning the tides against their oppressors, yet he also knew too much about these ambitions and plans for freedom laid bare before him made it difficult to ignore that Lawrence's words held promises of glory beyond mere tactics or strategy. "Tomorrow we ride not just as men, but brothers in arms," T continued in a tone meant both solemnly serious yet filled with the spirit of adventure and brotherhood, like an old psalm hummed by warriors across generations before them, something that had always connected Khalid to this land he called home despite its foreign interlude brought upon him through circumstances no one could truly foresee. The soundless night wrapped around both men as they rode in silence, leaving only the soft patter of camel hooves on sand beneath them, while Lawrence's presence seemed almost ethereal, an unseen guide leading Khalid deeper into a world where courage was measured not just by victories claimed, but also through shared struggles against oppressors. Khalid thought back to how he first met T when they were both young and hungry for freedom like any other boy who had ever lived under the rule of those in power too strong for one man alone. Yet what set him apart from his fellow compatriots was that Khalid found himself caught between worlds. A Bedouin warrior born into tradition, but driven by new ideas brought forth by Lawrence's passionate belief in Arab autonomy. It had been years since their paths crossed again under the same moonlit sky, yet here they were once more united as comrades and friends, two men who spoke different languages both verbally and culturally, but understood each other without words through shared experiences of struggle against common enemies that threatened to tear apart everything Khalid held dear. As the first light of dawn began to touch upon them like a gentle kiss awakening sleepy eyes, they prepared for what lay ahead, an attack planned under stars and with purpose in their hearts, guided by men who believed, not just dreamt about freedom, but fought actively towards it wherever fate would take him. Throw these thoughts into the night as T's voice breaks through Khalid's mind. "We must remember, my friend, there are no victories." Khalid's heart ached with a yearning that transcended language and culture. His soul resonated deeply within him, echoing Lawrence's fiery speeches of Arab independence. As T, though British by birth, but empathetic to the cause, stood beside Khalid under the fading moonlight, casting shadows like silent warriors upon their path, he felt as if destiny itself had intertwined his fate with that of a Bedouin youth whose dreams soared high beyond the endless desert horizons. Their journey lay ahead. It was fraught not only with physical battles, but also an inner struggle against oppression and societal constraints imposed upon their people for generations uncounted in Western reckoning. Khalid's spirit remained undeterred as he clung to the belief that this world held no permanence. The night air bristled with tension. Whispers of rebellion and murmurs against colonial rule had begun stirring within the hearts of many in their lands like wind upon dunes, yet fear still gripped those who listened too close, a fear not only for themselves, but also for what would come after. The two comrades knew that they must tread carefully as Dorn's first light threatened to betray them into the hands of suspicion and scrutiny. Each step forward could be their last. Yet Khalid was resolute in his purpose to fight not just for Arab autonomy, but also against being defined by an identity imposed upon him without consent. Throughout history's tapestry woven with tales of heroism and betrayal alike, there had been men whose lives spoke volumes more than mere words ever could. T's presence beside Khalid was a testament to that truth, as he often found himself in the uncomfortable position between culturist and Arab warrior amongst British officers, yet deeply moved by Lawrence's conviction and shared goals for their homeland's future freedom from foreign rule. As they prepared themselves mentally and physically under cover of darkness, T's voice broke through Khalid's thoughts. "We must remember, my friend, there are no victories." The words reverberated within him like a somber truth he could not ignore. Their fight was against something far greater than themselves or the empires that sought dominance over their people. The world beyond them knew nothing of these secret councils and clandestine operations. It only saw outward signs of disruption as uprisings were quelled with force. Yet here stood two men united not by allegiance to one cause, but a mutual belief that the future could be different. Khalid's mind wandered back through time when he had first met Lawrence, their shared experiences ranging from desert raids against Ottoman forces during World War I and impassioned discussions about Arab self-determination, or concept then considered radical by many of Khalid's people. It was a dance between light and shadow, where every encounter with the enemies might brought them closer in spirit, but further apart due to their different backgrounds. Yet they remained bound together through unwavering trust formed amidst adversity, a bond as enduring as history itself. The world may have seen only conflict within these borders of Arab lands and British mandates, not understanding that the struggle for autonomy was a quest towards self-discovery among communities divided by more than just geography, but ideology too. As they drew plans against common foes under starlit plans to ignite hope in hearts still smoldering with despair from years of colonial rule and the Great War's aftermath that had left so many wounded, both physically and mentally, their resolve grew stronger. For every soldier sacrificed or family lost, their cause seemed more righteous. The night would soon end, as day's first ray approached ominously like an overseer ready to uncover secrets best kept hidden under the veil of darkness that once shielded them from prying eyes and suspicion. Yet Khalid knew too well how easily dreams could be shattered. He turned his gaze upon T.E., who seemed no less a warrior in spirit than he was with firearm at side. Their camaraderie an unspoken vow to see through the mists of uncertainty that threatened to engulf them and all those they sought freedom for. Every word exchanged between these men spoke louder truths about shared sacrifice. "We are but two souls against a world too vast, yet together we can change its course." As Dorn's first light crept over the horizon, painting it in hues of pink and gold that promised a new beginning, Khalid felt an odd mix of trepidation and resolve settling deep within his chest. The night had been their sanctuary, a place where ideals seemed possible amidst whispered dreams of self-governance for the Arab people who longed to write their own chapter in history's voluminous tome, free from any overseer's gaze or oppressive mandate. Yet, as Khalid nestled against Tariq, whose uniform bore no insignia but carried a weight of purpose beyond its threads, he knew the coming day would demand sacrifices they had not yet faced with open eyes and hearts unblemished by sorrow's touch. The echo of laughter from campfires past seemed to fade into silence as each man readied themselves for battle anew. This time it was more than just war against foes, it was a fight to reclaim the very essence of their shared identity, shattered under foreign rule and exploitation by empires that saw them not as citizens but subjects. The air still hummed with tension even while nature's chorus played on around them. Khalid could feel Tariq's pulse quicken in time to the distant drumbeat of war, a rhythm both ancient and familiar recall that resonated within every soul yearning for liberty. It was their unspoken pact against tyranny, not just fighting with swords, but wielding unity as their greatest weapon. After all, they were two souls standing before the vastness of an empire too indifferent to comprehend what it meant to be truly free. Their conversations often veered into philosophical territories, debating how freedom was defined not just by physical sovereignty, but also through cultural revival and intellectual emancipation from colonial narratives that had long dictated their lives under the guise of education, religion, language suppression. They ponder on what independence could offer, a society where every voice contributed to its symphony rather than one muffled by layers of foreign control, or place for children born beneath arid skies to know nothing but home as they grew up. But the road ahead was shrouded in mist, each man acutely aware that their cause drew shadows not only from enemies lying dormant, or those who opposed change outrightly due to fear's paralyzing grip. It also attracted suspicion and scrutiny they could ill afford. They knew the world beyond night's embrace was rife with eyes hungry for power, ready to exploit any sign of unrest as a means to assert dominance over an already fractured region rich in resources yet impoverished by conflict. Yet, even amidst such dire contemplations, Khalid found solace knowing that Tariq stood with him, her brother in arms, whose spirit was alight despite the world's attempts to extinguish their mission as mere insurrection rather than a legitimate struggle for self-determination. They had spent countless nights beneath stars and whispers of freedom, discussing notions that transcended beyond simple survival. They spoke now with the same fervor about envisioning an Arab world reborn in dignity, or place where women walked unburdened by chains to men's will and children played on fields free from shrapnel's cruel legacy. As Khalid gazed into Tariq's steady eyes, he saw a reflection of that very dream etched onto the soul itself. It was not just their fight for freedom, but also one against ignorance and education in humanity, where every Arab could stand tall as custodian and creator rather than an expendable cog within empire's relentless machinery. The vision of a united people, diverse yet harmonious like the myriad hues that now adorned their world's skylights, was worth every sacrifice they were willing to make for its realization. Despite all this, Khalid carried with him an understanding as deep and vast as a canyon. He knew freedom came at great cost, and the road ahead would be riddled with challenges that could crush spirits underfoot if not navigated wisely. As they readied themselves to march into battle once more, it was this resolve forged in whispers of camaraderie against a backdrop where despair had been their constant companion for too long that would become the shield and spear with which to fight an empire that seemed immutable in these tranquil yet charged night hours. Tariq shared tales with Khalid, not stories that fueled fear for imminent warfare, but sagars about their ancestors who navigated through darkness to find unity and strength in diversity long before this time had come. Stories of how different tribes once lived separate lives until the wisdom seekers among them, like themselves now, brought forth a common ground where respect was mutual and education paramount, a lesson that history seemed eager to impart with every echo through their heritage halls. Khalid felt these tales were not mere reminiscences but blueprints for the future they envisioned, one without shrapnel or silence underfoot, where children could frolic freely and women led men as equals in all walks of life, a world that seemed to hum with possibility beneath Tariq's vivid narrations. It was a dream he knew many feared too lofty, but for once felt it might be within the grasp if only their spirit remained unbroken, like steel tempered by fire into something stronger and wiser than before. As dawn approached on this pivotal morning, Khalid stood with Tariq atop a gentle hill overlooking the land that bore both scars of strife and seeds of hope, or canvas as vast for their dreams to paint upon. With every shared laughter between them since they had first met under an old olive tree in secret rebellion, Khalid knew this friendship was more than just camaraderie. It was a bond that would anchor him through storm and squall alike on the road ahead, where many sought only to find themselves. He looked upon Tariq's visage, a reflection of their shared resolve emblazoned in his soul, reminding Khalid why he had once feared war, but now recognized it as necessary for a greater cause, not just against physical empires who wielded steel and fire to suppress voices yearning for freedom. This battle was also an internal one against the chains of ignorance that bound their hearts, minds, and spirits in fear rather than enlightenment. As they prepared themselves mentally as well as physically for what lay ahead at the break of day's light, Khalid clutched a small book to his heart, or tome filled with tales of Arab heroes past who had fought not just wars, but also battles against ignorance and superstition. These were stories that spoke directly into their souls, whispering courage where there was once only hesitance. The chronicles within these pages promised strength when they needed to stand tall as custodians for a people ready to inherit an education of humanity itself, a legacy he knew his own grandmother had longed for. The air around them felt different today, charged with purpose and hope rather than fear or fatigue. The sky painted in hues that seemed almost sacred, colors reflecting their unity despite being as varied as each individual's dream of a better world or mosaic, where every Arab could contribute to its vibrancy. Khalid knew this was not just about reclaiming lands, but also recapturing what made them whole, an education in themselves that would build the foundations for their unshakable spirit against any challenge they might face. Tariq's hand on his shoulder felt steady and sure as he looked towards him with eyes wide yet resolute, to his own dream no longer just a vision, but something tangible like steel, ready to be wielded in the battles that lay ahead for their cause. Together they knew this fight would not only unite them against an empire's forces, but also become instrumental in educating every Arab child about freedom and dignity. Where once there was a legacy of subjugation, now could bloom fields laden with knowledge, a world as beautifully diverse yet harmoniously singular as the skyline they envisaged. As Khalid took one last look at Tariq before setting out for battle, under an empire's shadow looming large over their land of dreamers, he felt his as dawn whispered its golden promises across the Arabian sands. Khalid and Tariq met atop a dune that overlooked their cherished village of Al-Farabi, a name symbolizing wisdom in ancient Tansurs, though to remind them both where they had come from. With every sunrise since childhood, the two friends found solace here among echoes of history and dreams for a new era that resonated with their heartbeats as one single rhythm against time's relentless march. Chapter 5. The Enduring Alliance. Today felt different. Today was more than just the beginning of another day, or even an impending battle. It marked the inception of a coalition that could very well become their destiny. Khalid had received word from distant allies who shared his vision for freedom and education across Arab lands. Leaders like Amina al-Zahra, whose voice carried wisdom as if it were gospel to those with eyes set toward enlightenment rather than darkness. The poet Abdullah bin Yassin, whose verses could move swords into plowshares through mere words. Khalid and Tariq found themselves at a grand tent pitched near ancient ruins where these visionaries had sought shelter from invading forces many moons ago, a place both haunted by past struggles yet imbued with the spirit of resilience that flowed in their blood like life-sustaining waters. As Khalid and Tariq stepped into a world alive once more, they were greeted not just as soldiers, but as symbols or promise to future generations whose innocent laughter might one day echo through the same dunes that had borne witness to their ancestors' tears of sorrow. They listened intently as Abdullah recited poems beneath starlit skies, his voice a balm and call to arms against oppression. He spoke not just with passion, but also purpose, or clarion cry for unity in diversity. Their first assembly came swiftly after the meeting of minds under twilight's embrace. A council comprising scholars from across the Arab world was summoned, each bringing insights and knowledge as precious commodities that could not be bought or sold, only shared freely for a common cause to prosper. Tariq took it upon himself to become an ambassador of sorts among his people, while Khalid delved into strategies alongside Abdullah's poetic wisdom, their camaraderie as deepening roots in the fertile soil of purpose they were about to sow towed for a force that would draw water from well springs long forgotten. In secret gatherings held within these sun-scorched lands where shadows whisper and history speaks through stones, Khalid unveiled plans for learning centers amidst battlefields. He proposed a future free of ignorances, changed a world in which children could look up to the stars, not as distant orbs, but as guiding lights toward an enlightened horizon. With every step deeper into their campaign, Khalid and Tariq felt less like they were fighting for land alone. It became a struggle for hearts that had been hardened by fear of fight, where victory meant the birth of hope within each soul touched by their cause's flame. As children gathered around makeshift classrooms built upon ancient battlefields, eager minds absorbed tales not just from history but also lessons on liberty and dignity as fundamental human rights. In a night under crescent moons, when the desert wind carried promises of change with every gust through palm fronds above Al Farabir, Khalid stood tall beside Tariq atop their village's central dune once more there, silhouettes etched against twilight like prophets returning to shepherd souls. The final preparations for battle were underway as they trained the young recruits in tactics and courage, teaching them that strength lay not only within arms, but also wisdom's sharpness of mind, or curriculum where every Arab could discover their own power and potential while honoring a shared heritage. Khalid knew this journey would be treacherous as it meandered through valleys shadowed by empires, yet he felt an unshakable conviction that together with Tariq they were sowing seeds of tomorrow's forest from the sands beneath their feet, are testament to humanity's indomitable spirit. And as Khalid looked into Tariq's steadfast eyes, he knew this was but a prologue in an epic that would unfold across time and tides. Of amidst a sea of whispering sand dunes stood Al Farabir's Harter village, where history was alive. Its pulse echoed through generations as tales of valor and wisdom were passed down under stolid canopies. It had been days since Khalid first gazed upon the horizon from atop their home's highest dune with Tariq by his side. Now they stood together before an encampment where every soul's destiny seemed to intertwine like roots beneath ancient stone ruins and forgotten civilizations. With a breath that carried all of Al Farabir's hopes and fears into the cool desert air, Khalid addressed his kinfolk one by one, their faces illuminated only by flickering campfires. Amber glowed their light, as steadying fingers guiding them toward a future both uncertain yet bright with possibility. "My brothers," he began in hushed tones that seemed to wrap around each listener like the warmth of sunlight on skin, "we stand at dawn's first blush where our journey begins." The assembly listened intently as Khalid spoke, not just for guidance but also soothing comfort. He recounted tales woven with threads from their shared pasture tapestry that spanned centuries and told of heroes whose names had become legends whispered in the winds, yet who too were once upon a time like them, sons of sands facing giants to claim freedom's embrace. As tales cascaded through generations long deceased lived on within these very ears that now hung onto his every word, Khalid painted pictures with language mural against the encroaching night, where each stroke was a syllable of courage and fraternity etched into hearts. "We are not merely defenders in this struggle," he proclaimed as young eyes sparkled with determination at having heard such tales before, but guardians entrusted to uphold liberty's fragile flame against the darkening shadows looming over their horizontal modern Prometheus, unbound from tyranny's chains. In a night under crescent moons, when whispers of change rustled through palm fronds above, Al Farabir would come alive with every secret shared and hope kindled within each soul touched by their cause's flame. For Tariq had devised an ingenious curriculum for the young recruits, or blend that fostered not only tactical acumen but also enlightened minds to grasp liberty's quintessence as a fundamental human right, teaching them wisdom lay in unity and honor of their shared heritage. As Tariq demonstrated maneuvers with an eloquence born from the sands themselves, a siege parry and thrust flowing like poetry across the desert floor, a deep-seated conviction settled upon Khalid's heart, for he knew that to wield wisdom was as formidable a weapon against oppression's armies. His resolve would strengthen with each sunrise. Every lesson imparted on courage and intellect fortified them not just in body but spiritually to an army of minds enriched beyond their years, ready for whatever lay ahead upon the battlefields that promised to test both mettle and morale alike. But as Khalid stood before his people once more at twilight's hour, with Tariq beside him on a dune's crest, their silhouettes etched against skies like prophets returning in solemnity, he understood the enormity of what they faced, yet felt an unshakable conviction that together as one voice from their shared blood and dreams would resonate across valleys shadowed by empires. The night before battle was often a time for reflection. Tonight it became also for celebrationers. Khalid led his people in songs of old, melodies laden with the hopes they carried within them like seeds ready to bloom into life-affirming flowers that would paint their homeland's future. Their voices soared and dipped through Al Farabir's sandscape as if riding upon zephyrs themselves, a harmonious chorus of freedom woven between the notes, or symphony heralding dawn yet unseen, but felt within each heart like an impending promise in their collective grasp. Khalid knew well that history was written not only by those who survived to tell it, but also through actions performed under skies witnessed by countless others before and after them, a legacy built on the foundations of bravery, learning, and unwavering unity in times when freedom seemed as Khalid and his people stood in silent reverence upon that hallowed dune's crest, wherein lay not just sand, but grains of their indomitable spirit. He looked into each hopeful face or tapestry woven with threads as diverse yet united under the banner of freedom. The cool night air carried whispers from a distant land beyond Al-Farabir's sandscape, where empires cast long shadows across dreams and histories intertwined like roots beneath ancient trees, their leaves rustling tales passed down through generations to those who listened with hearts open as the earth. Tonight was not just a time for reflection, but also reverberating echoes of songs that once lulled them into slumber in calmer times, and now promised renewal under Stahlit's Skeezer testament etched within every melody played on lyres strung with threads from the very fabric they sought to protect. Khalid's voice rose, intertwining with Tariq's as if their breath were one, carrying a cadence that spoke of unity and an unyielding commitment not just for themselves, but echoed in aspirations beyond Al-Farabir, coal across desert expanses to all who would heed it. Through the night's embrace, tales were shared among kin as stories wove through generations like water-carving canyons over time, each narrative a brushstroke in their culture's vast mural that stretched beyond sight and memory into tomorrow or promise of resilience. And Khalid listened to these ancestral voices, feeling the weight and warmth as they spoke through him like some light-piercing clouds after days-long storms, for he knew stories were not mere entertainment, but vessels carrying wisdom that had nourished souls before his own time, legacy entrusted in their shared blood, as tales of valorous ancestors, whose very names became synonymous with courage and honor through ages past, danced on tongues like jinns recounting legends to the stars themselves. Khalid's heart swelled within his chest, a reminder that history was not just carved in marble, but also sung from lips. His people's songs were notes plucked upon Al-Farabir's strings by skilled hands, a symphony resonating with the pulse of their beating hearts, each note imbuing them with fortitude and an unbreakable bond that held firm against empire's tremors. The night before battle was thus spent not in fear, but celebration or testament to resolve, as Khalid led his people through memories old and wrapped within the cloak of present courage, a beacon shining steadfastly upon horoscapes alight and strange lands yet unseen. Their voices became one with night's chorus. Each word uttered beneath this celestial canopy was an affirmation that though empires might rise in greed or oppression under the sun, when hearts beat as one against such darkness, even shadows could not stifle their lighter song of freedom bound by neither land nor horizon. In these shared moments with his people and within themselves, Khalid felt a kinship deeper than bloodlines. It was inseparable from the essence he carried, like an ember igniting hope's flame through Al-Farabir's sandscape where they stood united. They knew battles were fought not just upon fields of dunes, but within hearts and minds, an invisible war waged with conviction as a shield against despair. For the courage to dream was often birthed in silence before dawn's chorus began once more. Khalid's eyes met Tariq's across their intertwined silhouettes, reflecting not fear, but resolve, their mutual understanding that they were bound together as one heartbeat against the tide of impending conflict. An oath whispered in silent language between them was fortified by every gaze exchanged and word spoken. They shared a knowing smile under starlit skies where destiny's threads wound around their beings, or future painted not with brushes but through acts that would etch themselves upon history's endless scroll. Each stroke an imprint of freedom fought for and hard won amidst empire's relentless march. As the first light threatened to pierce night's veil at dawn's approach, their time woven between daylight hours as a prelude before their fate would unfold under heavens witnessed by countless others throughout history and those yet unborn. Khalid embraced his as Khalid and Tariq stood side by side beneath an expanse of twinkling constellations that had silently witnessed their bond. They felt a kinship deeper than bloodlines. It was inseparable from the essence he carried, like an ember igniting hope's flame through Al-Farabir's sandscape where they stood united. They knew battles were fought not just upon fields of dunes, but within hearts and minds. As Tariq took Khalid's hand in a reassuring grasp that spoke volumes without uttering words, for the courage to dream was often birthed in silence before dawn's chorus began once more. Their shared understanding had been fortified by every gaze exchange, an unspoken language of mutual resolve against despair. An oath whispered between them sealed their commitment, as tightly wound silk threads around the core of each other's beings. Within Alfarabir's sandscape stretching far beyond where night could fall or sun rise to claim its dominion again, they found solace in knowing that together there was a strength, a resilience born not from might, but the purity of their unity and shared aspirations. Khalid's eyes met Tariq's across their intertwined silhouettes. With every reflection cast upon these ancient dunes, they saw themselves as allies in destiny rather than mere strangers passing through time or future, painted not with brushes but through acts that would etch themselves onto history's endless scroll. Each stroke of courage and sacrifice left by their hands was an imprint of freedom fought for and hard won amidst empires. Relentless march, a testament to the unyielding spirit within them both. As they stood in silent reverie under starlit skies that seemed almost sentient with stories yet told across countless generations, Khalid clutched his sister's pendant, her family heirloom passed down through whispered tales of yore and embodiments of their shared ancestry. Tariq's touch upon the hem of her flowing robe spoke to a history that had shaped them beyond what was taught in dusty tomes or recited under flickering campfire lights, her legacy not confined by borders, but woven into every fibre of existence itself, as if their bloodlines themselves were threads within Alfarabir's everlasting tapestry. Khalid's gaze shifted to the distant horizon, where shadows began creeping across earthly contours and night surrendered its reign slowly but irrevocably to daylight, hours or prelude before their fate would unfold under heavens witnessed by countless others throughout history, as well as those yet unborn. As he embraced his sister's hand once more with a tenderness that transcended mere familial bonds and ventured into the realms of destiny itself, Tariq felt an echoing warmth in her heart. Their shared smile under starlit skies was but one stitch in history's tapestry. It carried within it not just their own story, to tell or retell as they walked through Alfarabir's sandscape, which had seen empires rise and fall like the breath of a world itself unaware yet conscious beyond its grasp, or testament that even amidst such vastness stood two souls intertwined with unwavering resolve. Their journey through Alfarabir was not just physical traversal across dunes, but an odyssey within the heart's intricate corridors, where each grain of sand bore witness to humanity's enduring quest for freedom and justice, or place beyond maps, charts, or any semblance of modern boundaries. As they meandered through a landscape that had borne silent testimony over centuries, their steps were paced by the rhythmic chanting of ancient verses carried on desert-winged currents. These voices imbued them with strength and reminded Khalid and Tariq not to lose sight of why they fought not for power or glory, but in pursuit of what lay ahead, beyond this horizon that held both promise and peril. Their conversation turned often toward the future as much as it did towards their present struggles, while words were necessary for strategy planning within Alfarabir's vast confines. They understood too well the power embedded in silence of unspoken agreement between them to weather stormy tempests or bask quietly under celestial guidance when solace was needed. Tariq's knowledge of herbal remedies and the night was particularly clear, the stars shimmering in their constellations above as if to illuminate a path for those daring enough to seek wisdom beyond Alfarabir's sandy embrace. It wasn't long before Khalid and Tariq found themselves at this well after learning of its existence from an old woman whose eyes had seen the ebb and flow of many moons over their land, eyes that sparkled with mischief now as they shared tales spun through generations, stories where water was not just a source for quenching thirst but medicine in itself. Tariq's fingers traced patterns on the cool ground before drawing back to his companion's side, her silent invitation into mystery and magic that seemed as real here among ancient stones and whispers of greenery, where even their footprints left no trace due to nature reclaiming her own. The old woman had spoken in riddles about a time when water was the heartbeat within which life flowed freely, or truth she claimed could still be awakened if one knew how and dared enough to listen closely, for Alfarabir held more than just sand beneath its feet. It cradled spirits of old who walked among us. Khalid had always felt the pulse of life in every grain he'd ever collected, an understanding that extended beyond mere survival and into a harmonious existence with his environment, which Tariq recognized too as she recalled stories where water was revered not for its utility but celebrated. With each step closer to this hallowed place, The air seemed thickened around them by memories unearthed from deep within themselves, a resonance that whispered of unity and shared strengths in times when such things were a rarity as scarce as rain under Al-Farabir's expansive skies. As they approached the well, Khalid noticed how evenly spaced rocks created an almost deliberate pathway to its center, natural mosaic that invited contemplation of their own journey thus far and what lay ahead in this harsh land where life had been a constant battle for survival. Tariq's eyes lit up with the recognition of patterns etched into stones, as if nature herself imparted her wisdom through these silent sentinels standing guard over untold knowledge that only those like them could truly appreciate and respect, their bond strengthening each time they looked upon such natural testaments to endurance. The well itself was a circle of earth encased by the greenest fronds, an oasis amidst desolation, where water whispered secrets into willing ears if one knew how to listen for them in its reflection. Sir Truth, Khalid and Tariq had learned from oral histories passed down through bloodlines that honored such things as sacred. They knelt together at the well's edge. Hands hovering just above water, they would soon draw forth into cupped palms with a reverence reserved for life-giving elements in their world, or gesture of thanks to those who had come before them and trusted this very spot beneath Al-Farabir's sky. The night seemed suspended as Tariq offered an ancient chant learned from the women whose stories he cherished, a melody that hummed through Khalid's soul with each note or song of gratitude for water and its essence in sustaining life amidst desolate stretches. It was this shared ritual they had often performed together at dawn, when night's darkness gave way to the fiery hues painting Al-Farabir's horizon, a time where their spirits found solace from strife within each other and with an unforgiving world that did not understand or recognize love for one another. As Khalid sipped slowly on water's gift beneath moonlight spilling over into the night sky, his heart held firm to Tariq's side, a constant reminder of their shared journey through Al-Farabir and its trials that had only made them stronger in unity. They rose together from where they Khalid remembered how, as children of the ancient city, where water was both a precious commodity and reverenced entity within their community's culture, sacred element believed to hold life force itself, had watched his parents draw cool streams into cupped hands with eyes closed in silent prayer for sustenance. This ritual bonded every family lineage together, weaving an invisible thread of gratitude that spanned generations and cradled their ancestral spirits within the very air they breathed, a tradition he vowed to uphold as long as his heart beat with Tariq's pulse beside him. As night embraced Al-Farabir, Khalid wrapped himself in tales of older treasure trove of anecdotes and law that had been whispered from one ear to another since the dawn sky first greeted his grandfather's weary eyes upon arriving here. These stories were not mere words but lifeblood, a testament passed through time which told them who they were, a people whose lineage was deeply rooted in endurance and respect for nature's gifts, even as the world around seemed to crumble under greed's relentless siege. Tariq listened intently. His mind painted vivid pictures of grandparents he had never met, their faces illuminated by candlelight during sacred ceremonies that marked life's milestones, and the changing seasons all united at this very well in a communion for water. He imagined them standing shoulder to shoulder with Tariq's ancestors as they joined hands over cool waters, their unity transcending time into his embrace, now intertwining forevermore with Khalid's lineage through the blood that coursed within him and shared in unison by both of these entwined souls. Beneath the crescent moon's tender gaze, they often spoke words to one another as if their voices were carried on wind currents across ages. Tariq whispered his fears into Khalid's ear with trust in the sanctity of shared silence that had been passed down through lineages. With each exchange of confessions and dreams between them, he felt a sense of belonging to this place or land where their intertwined destinies could bloom unfettered by societal norms or expectations which often sought only division in the name of survival against encroaching barbarians. Khalid's hand found solace along Tariq's back as they sat side by side on a weathered rock beside that same well, a symbol now imbued with their love and commitment to each other amidst the trials of existence in Al-Farabir. They had laughed together at tales told by elder women, those who wove fables into psalms, spinning stories around campfires where stars were mere pinpricks, through which ancient gods looked down upon mortal endeavors with curiosity or indifference depending on the night's mood or source of comfort against a backdrop not always kind. Yet Here they sat beneath Alfarabir's sky, their spirits intertwined like roots seeking water in parched earth. Tariq and Khalid found strength within each other that surpassed the need for mere sustenance of body or spirit or love profound enough to withstand time's erosion. They had shared this night as children, but now they sat together beneath a tapestry woven from twinkling celestial lights and hushed whispers on starlit breezes that caressed their skin. The world seemed far removed into legends of olden times, when hearts beating unison to songs echoing through valleys etched with histories as deep as they were wide. As dawn approached, promising a resurgence from night's embrace and offering solace for those seeking respite after long days spent harnessing the strength of their community against forces that sought not merely survival but dominance over Alfarabir's, Soltaric took Khalid in his arms, embracing him with a warmth as dawn approached with its rosy fingers painting streaks across the horizon. Tariq and Khalid found themselves in a serene silence that seemed to hum harmoniously within their chests or prelude to a new day filled yet again with promise under Alfarabir's sky. Their shared journey had been long. Each sunrise since childhood was but another echo of the laughter and dreams they once wove into songs by firelight, where tales were born from elder women's lips as seamlessly as their own children now emerged to carry on those legacies in whispers. Yet, amidst this timeless cycle lay a truth that tugged at Tariq's heartstrings. Their love was not merely an ember waiting for kindling, but rather the blazing hearth of Alfarabir itself, unyielding to night's encroaching shadows or daybreak's gentle intrusion. As they nestled together in each other's arms beneath a sky that had stood sentinel over their souls for years beyond counting, Tariq knew this love was the sustenance of his spirit, and perhaps even more crucial than food itself to ward off famine or fear from within him, a beacon against time's relentless erosion. The world outside had not paused its tumultuous dance for their solace. It seemed as though nature herself was in mourning, the skies often darkened by tempests that roared like ancient dragons, scorning Alfarabir's plighter testament to an age where battles were fought not only on earth but within hearts. Tariq and Khalid had been forged in such times when unity was the weapon as potent against domination, each other's hand holding steadfast like a promise amidst chaos. They stood together atop wind-blown dunes where whispers of their ancestors' valor still lingered on salty air. As the first light pierced through Alfarabir's skies, it unveiled not merely another day, but a canvas to be colored with new-found hope, and resolve a fresh chapter in Tariq's chronicle of love interwoven with duty that spanned generations. He could almost hear the soft strumming of lutes accompanying his heartbeat, felt by Khalid's touch as he nestled closer against him. It was a symphony birthed not from music, but shared humanity or sonnet composed without words in their embrace under Alfarabir's gaze. The city had known times of darkness, when shadows loomed long, and the will to endure seemed futile against oppressors who sought dominance over every facet of existence. Within its borders whispered curses that seeped into cracks in walls, as much a part of Alfarabir's history as cobbled streets or windmill silhouettes. Tariq had carried the weight of those times, his parents, stories etched upon him like scars born out of pride and resilience. Khalid embraced such memories with an affection that was tender yet unwavering, for they were not just lovers, but custodians of a legacy as deep-rooted in Alfarabir's soul as the ancient olive trees lining its alleyways. As Tariq gazed into Khalid's eyes, his vision was no longer clouded by uncertainties or fear, for all he knew came from within him, and a shared history that had shaped them both in ways they understood not through words but through heartbeats resonating as one. They were children of Alfarabir's soil. Its fertile ground nurtured their spirits, teaching them to draw strength like the very flora thrived beneath sunlight and rain, resilient against adversities that sought neither solace nor surrender but only dominion over land and kin. Their shared love was a testament, not just of two hearts beating in unison under Alfarabir's watchful skies. It also mirrored the unity they had seen their ancestors display, not merely to survive an encroaching enemy, but live with dignity and pride. Tariq remembered stories his grandmother would tell by candlelight, tales of courage that spanned generations, where love for a place was as fierce as it was tender, echoing through the ages like hymns sung in praise or lamentation against Alfarabir's rugged beauty. Within Chapter 11's closing whispers of twilight and a shared sigh between Tariq and Khalid, They reveled in their unspoken understanding, or language born not from words, but mutual respect forged through countless sunsets watching over the olive groves. It was within this tender embrace that Al-Farabir's ancient echoes found a new voice, as Tariq and Khalid's own story began to unfurl, weaving itself into the fabric of their lineage with threads golden and green alike, a very lifeblood nurtured by this sacred land. The day had brought them not only closer, but also unveiled a hidden trove beneath an ancient olive tree where Tariq's grandfather, now long passed into the annals of history like so many before him, once found solace during his own tempestuous youth, or time when Al-Farabir trembled under siege. Here lay not just remnants, but relics, a weathered helmet and shards of pottery that whispered tales of valor to those who dared listen with their hearts as well as ears, teaching them resilience rooted in the soil they stood upon, no soil stained by blood, yet richer for its story. That night Tariq dreamt he was walking alongside Al-Farabir's ancestors once more, his vision filled with a mosaic of faces and emotions that painted an unbroken lineage across time, wherein each generation's heartbeat resonated through to the next, her cadence steady like rolling thunder, yet as intimate as rain upon parched earth. He remembered tales told by flickering candlelight, stories not just of survival against encroaching darkness, but a testament to living with dignity wrapped around his soul's core amidst Al-Farabir's rugged beauty and its relentless sunsets that bathed the land in hues as deep as history itself. As dawn spilled into their humble abode, it found Tariq awakened not by an alarm, but a sense of purpose, a realization firmly planted within him like one of Al-Farabir's ancient olive trees that had withstood centuries and wars without yielding. He knew now the mantle he must wear was no stranger to his grandmother's tales, nor her steely gaze, for it hung upon Khalid, as well a shared legacy they were destined to uphold like guardians of a past that shaped their very essence and future alike. Khalid rose with the sunrise's tender caress, his heartbeat synchronized effortlessly, not just within Tariq, but between them, as symphony played on strings plucked by fate itself, as they had come to understand each other in ways that transcended mere affection. They were intertwined like roots beneath Al-Farabir's soil, a union forged over shared trials and triumphant moments witnessed through the window panes of their ancestral home, where every sunrise promised a new another chapter to be inscribed with ink drawn from life's deepest well. Together they wandered into Al-Farabir's Tinto, its marketplace teeming beneath a sky that knew no dusk but the one brought by weary travelers and lovers alike, who whispered secrets to passing clouds as if entrusting them with their own histories. Here Tariq traced his fingers along spice-laden airs infused with tales of older tapestry woven from threads both vibrant and faded, that told the story not just of a city but its people. Each one, like him and Khalid, carried an unbreakable bond to Al-Farabir's soil. As they meandered through narrow alleys lined with weathered stone houses, echoing laughter long silent, or tears absorbed by the very walls that bore the mad testament of time itself, standing sentinel over generations past, and present thee paused to pay homage at a small shrine obscured not just from plain sight, but also history's cursory glance. The air here was thick with prayers, each one carried on zephyrs as they sought solace in the embrace of their shared hometown's spirit. It whispered into Tariq and Khalid a promise that this land would always be more than just territory, it had become an extension of themselves. Together with every sunset, Al-Farabir painted upon its canvas scenes not merely observed, but Al-Farabir's Tinto, its marketplace teeming beneath a sky that knew no dusk but the one brought by weary travelers and lovers alike, who whispered secrets to passing clouds as if entrusting them with their own histories. Here Tariq traced his fingers along spice-laden airs infused with tales of older tapestry woven from threads both vibrant and faded, that told the story not just of a city but its people. Each one, like him and Khalid, carried an unbreakable bond to Al-Farabir's soil. As they meandered through narrow alleys lined with weathered stone houses, echoing laughter long silent, or tears absorbed by the very walls that bore the mad testament of time itself, standing sentinel over generations past, and presently paused to pay homage at a small shrine obscured not just from plain sight, but also history's cursory glance. The air here was thick with prayers, each one carried on zephyrs as they sought solace in the embrace of their shared hometown's spirit. It whispered into Tariq and Khalid a promise that this land would always be more than just territory. It had become an extension of themselves. Together with every sunset, Al-Farabi painted upon its canvas scenes not merely observed but lived through the collective heartbeat of generations before them. It was where their lineage found roots and blossomed like a steadfast olive grove resisting relentless winds. The city's soul seemed to resonate within Tariq's chest as he approached its ancient library, an edifice that had stood untouched by the ravages of time yet whispered wisdom through silent pages, and weather-beaten leather covers her sanctuary for knowledge treasured like precious jewels. Within these walls, where scholars once debated under flickering candlelight on matters great and small, air was heavy with the musk of time-worn parchment as he sought a tome rumored to contain Al-Farabi's most guarded secrets about its very essence. The hunt led them through rows that stretched towards infinity, where books lay like slumbering serpents in their dusty beds of papyrus and bound leather, a labyrinthine trove safeguarded by the relentless march of time itself. Tariq's hand brushed against a spine embossed with gilded script, its title unreadable to modern eyes yet familiar in form, The Essence of Al-Farabi. His heart raced as he caressed it. Khalid watched his face reflect the first blushes of dawn that bled through stained glass windows, casting kaleidoscopic patterns across their path. Together they ventured into a secluded alcove, where even shadows seemed to hold back in reverence for tales untold and mysteries veiled within leather covers. For lay the heart of Al-Farabi's history that beats still beneath its quiet exterior. Tariq gently lifted the tome, as if cradling a delicate butterfly, aware now more than ever of his profound connection to this place and people who had nurtured him from infancy. Your sense of duty intertwined with an insatiable thirst for understanding that propelled them forward. The library's custodian was as ancient as the stone beneath their feet, a man whose beard cascaded like waterfalls in moonlight, and eyes held stormy depths reflecting untold years of silent watchfulness, an oracle who knew every word Tariq spoke yet revealed nothing more than he needed to hear. The old keeper's voice was the rustle of dry leaves, as softly spoken words led them through whispered histories that danced like fireflies in a moon-drenched garden at nightfall. Each revelation about Al-Farabi's spirit and resilience seemed to weave itself into Tariq's very solar tapestry of tales, spanning epochs, where every thread was imbued with the city's enduring strength against all manner of adversity. As twilight approached on this particular day, when souls often whisper secrets and dreamt their deepest fears into being, Tariq sat beneath an archway carved from a single living tree, the very one that had watched over Al-Farabi's first settlers as they laid the foundations of what would become this bastion. As twilight deepened into a velvety night sky dotted with stars just as numerous and distant planets, Tariq felt an inexplicable peace settle within him like dew upon morning leaves. The ancient library of Al-Farabi had been his sanctuary since childhood. It was here that he first heard the stories whispered among stone shelves tales, not just for amusement, but as threads binding generations to one another and their land through time's endless weave. The keeper watched him with eyes like twilight pools, reflecting secrets of a bygone era. He felt the weight of history on his shoulders, even while it was cradled delicately in Tariq's hands. Or butterfly, seemingly fragile yet robustly resilient after its transformative journey, today had been extraordinary for reasons beyond comprehension or words to convey adequate justice. The keeper handed over a leather-bound manuscript that seemed ancient even by their standards, and as cryptic in nature as any prophecy once deciphered from star patterns. Tariq's heart raced with anticipation, his mind whirling like leaves caught in an autumnal tempest of curiosity. What secrets did this book hold? The keeper spoke not a syllable beyond the title etched upon its spine, Chronicles of Al-Farabi. Tariq's fingers traced each letter, his touch lingering on as if to honor their shared history. The room grew stiller. Even shadows seemed hushed in respectful silence for what was about to unfold, a narrative that might bridge past with present and future alike, or perhaps just deepen the enigmatic veil already draped over Al-Farabi's story like an ancient mantle. The keeper's voice, always a mere whisper of wind through sagebrush when not imparting wisdom upon his charges, now seemed to carry with it echoes from another realm, altoed for a place where the very essence of time held no dominion over mankind's enduring spirit. Tariq found himself absorbed in tales that spoke of Al-Farabir's ancestors who had first settled upon this fertile crescent, their resilience evident as they braved unknown waters and untamed landscapes to establish the cradle where his people now thrived. As he read onward through generations, Tariq felt a kinship with those whose blood ran thick within him, a lineage of custodians who had risen from humble beginnings much like himself, but bore their responsibilities not as burdensome chains, but rather noble yokes. The chronicles unveiled stories wherein Al-Farabir's ancestors faced calamities that would have crushed lesser spirits. They stood tall, each trial weathered only to emerge stronger and more resolute in their devotion to the land of his forebears. Through tales woven with threads both sombre and uplifting, Tariq learned about Al-Farabir's great-grandmother who had nurtured ailing plants back from brink of death using only herbal concoctions brewed under the moon's watchful gaze. The chronicles chronicled how she taught young girls to read and write when formal education was scarce, ensuring that knowledge, like water in well springs during drought seasons, flowed freely through generations of Al-Farabir's people regardless of the trials they faced outside their city walls. Night after night Tariq delved deeper into these chronicles, stories like ripples on a pond, each touching upon tales both heartwarming and harrowing, until he felt as though his own life was but one thread within an ever-expanding tapestry of Al-Farabir's history. He learned not only about past struggles with natural disasters that had threatened to erode the city's foundations stone by stone, but also how its people banded together in unity, and resilience and enduring strength mirrored within his own soul as he sat beneath their living archway each evening. As if guided by unseen hands of fate, or perhaps sheer coincidence, that drew him deeper into the chronicle's embrace, Tariq stumbled upon an account describing a period when Al-Farabir nearly vanished from memory, an era where history had been forgotten like footprints washed away in sands by time's relish. Tariq turned another page of the chronicles under his cozy blankets. He discovered a delicate vellum leaf wedged between ancient pages, a forgotten artifact from an era when Al-Farabir was but a whisper on old tongues, and memories drifted like smoke in the desert breeze. It took him back to those very years where disaster struck with merciless fury. Yet within this hardship lay the seeds of unity that would one day flourish into unwavering communal strength he felt coursing through his veins, as if awakened from a deep slumber. The chronicle spoke of sandstorms so fierce they painted the sky in hues no artist could mimic, yet every grain carried with it tales that bound Al-Farabir's people together tighter than ever before. In those trials, wrought by nature's capricious temperament, Tariq read of a community whose spirits did not waver. Instead, they came to realize the strength lay in their shared resolve and collective ingenuity, a realization that fortified them like fortresses against calamity's sieges. Each tale within these vellum pages was meticulously woven into a narrative of resilience, where water had become as precious an asset as any metal, treasured and rationed with the wisdom bestowed upon Al-Farabir's matriarch or keeper, whose knowledge spanned from herbal law to ancestral traditions. Tariq's heart swelled at learning how she had turned barren earth into bountiful gardens, teaching others not just sustenance, but the reverence for nature itself and its inexhaustible mysterious legacy that lived on even as his own fingers traced these lines of ancient wisdom. As Tariq delved further, he encountered stories where artistry flowered amidst adversity, murals painted with vibrant colors by youths who found solace and expression in the strokes guided by elders, teachings an enduring visual lexicon that told of Al-Farabir's soul. There was a tale, as Tariq read under candlelight flickering like distant stars against his pillowcase skyline, about an annual festival where music and dance celebrated the land despite its trials. Each note played on instruments carved from desert wood echoed Al-Farabir's defiance. The chronicle revealed that during periods when darkness threatened to smother hope like a nocturnal beast lurking in shadows, an unspoken pact among the people had held them steadfast, or solemn vow never again to forget their interconnected fates and shared histories, which were as intricately bound together as threads within Al-Farabir's fabric. In these chronicles lay a mirror reflecting Tariq's own journey, his quest for knowledge not just through texts but also the warmth of human connections rooted in communal experiences that had weathered storms and sunburn alike, a testament to Al-Farabir's spirit. Thrice he read a passage where generations before him faced famine, yet their bond never waned, instead strengthened by each other's unwavering support, like roots entwined beneath the earthy surface supporting towering trees, a resilience that Tariq felt growing within his own spirit. The chronicles spoke of a time when Al-Farabi nearly faded into obscurity, where memories were as fragile and transient as dandelion seeds caught in an errant breeze. But the people refused to let their history crumble like dry clay beneath relentless waves. Therein lay a tale of renewal that followed devastation, or time when Al-Farabi's survivors, with hands calloused from labor and hearts mended by compassionate acts among neighbors, rebuilt their city stone upon the ashes of despair. Every new foundation laid was an act against oblivion. Tariq read about how tales were told not just to remember, but also to inspire, each story a vessel for hope that sailed across generations like ships braving treacherous seas toward distant shores, where light and laughter awaited after the darkest nights. As he journeyed through the chronicles, Tariq's own life seemed less of an isolated path, but rather part of a grand meandering river that flowed into Al-Farabi's heart, a convergence point for past and future, where every struggle was not just. As Tariq turned each page of the chronicles with reverent fingers, he felt a gentle tug at his own spirit, a yearning for stories not just told, but lived by those who had endured through Al-Farabi's darkest nights to the dawn that followed. Chapter 16 unfolded like an invitation into understanding how resilience was woven into the very fabric of this city's being, a testament to human tenacity and hope amidst adversity. In those times when shadows loomed over Al-Farabi's cobbled streets, Tariq read about women whose wisdom radiated like beacons in darkened corridors of Fiat. Matriarch Amara was one such luminary. Her tales were not mere recitations, but a lifeline thrown into the churning seas for her kin to hold onto amidst storms, as she navigated through famine with grace and fortitude that inspired even those who had lost everything they once knew. Tariq learned of Abu Turk's legendary blacksmith, whose hammer rang out a rhythmic dirge against despair itself, his anvil not just forging weapons, but symbols, each strike on the red-hot iron resonating with calls to unity and shared purpose. Their stories were interwoven into the very clay that formed Al-Farabi's homes, their testament of survival inked by hands once trembling from cold hunger, now steadied by conviction for a better morrow. The chapter spoke of children like Laylat, whose laughter seemed to echo through time as she learned under the tutelage of elders who believed education was not just about books, but lessons etched in life's trials and triumphs, knowledge passed down by stories that were never recounted with words alone. As Tariq delved deeper into the chronicles, he uncovered tales where the very stones of Al-Farabi seemed to whisper secrets, their age-old faces holding within them centuries of memories and lessons learned in love and loss, or communal diary that chronicled not just survival, but a spirit indomitable. He read about nights when the city's lanterns shone brighter, as if each flicker was an affirmation from Al-Farabi's ancestors themselves, every illuminated window and open doorway inviting not only rest but remembrance of bonds that held them tighter through trials. The chronicles depicted festivities too, where even the most sorrowful hearts found solace in shared celebration, or mosaic of culture, thriving on resilience as much a part of its identity as any tradition or custom known to Tariq's world today. It was here he read about how Al-Farabi's people, through the simple acts of preparing meals with scant ingredients and sharing stories under starlit skies, discovered an enduring strength that no calamity could fracture, an eternal festival woven into their everyday lives. Tariq found himself drawn to a tale about Yamnarjar, who learned the language of empathy from her grandmother's tales, how she would sit beside elders and listen with rapt attention, absorbing not just words, but wisdom or legacy that grew within Tariq's heart as he too began reading aloud by the light of a solitary lamp. As chapter 16 wound down like an ancient parable coming full circle, it spoke to how Al-Farabi was more than stone and mortar. She stood for hope, or bastion, where resilience echoed through generations as surely as the river flows towards the sea. Tariq's understanding deepened with each word that fell upon his lips in hushed tones, realizing he too had become a part of this grand narrative stretching back to its roots and ever upward toward tomorrow's promises, tale not yet finished, but always unfolding within the hearts of those who dare dream. And as Tariq closed the chronicles that night, his mind was full with stories he would carry forward into a world where sometimes all it takes is to remember how Al-Farabir's people faced darkness and found light in Todfiness or beacon for anyone who might find themselves adrift between the pages of their own history. Tariq nestled deeper into his chair as he listened to Narjar's voice weave through the chronicles of Al-Farabir, each word she read aloud like a soothing balm on his soul after long days spent in the dusty archives. With her gentle cadence and unwavering dedication, stories unfolded before Tariq's eager mind. He found himself transported back to Al-Farabir's golden age, at time when knowledge was treasured above all else. As Narjar approached the tale of the scholar, a story well known yet always more profound with each telling, Tariq remembered how his own grandmother had once regaled him with similar tales under her warm gaze in their humble abode on an evening just like this one, or time when he too was enraptured by the wisdom of ages. The story spoke of a young scholar named Khalid who, much like Tariq and Narjar before him now, spent countless hours within Al-Farabir's ancient library walls. His heart yearned for more than just knowledge. He sought understanding, or bridge to connect with the souls that once roamed those streets alongside his own ancestors. Khalid's journey was marked by moments of frustration and solitude, but always led back to a shared human experience transcending time itself. Narjar's voice captured every emotion or heartbeat, sinking with the rhythmic rise and fall of Al-Farabir as it had centuries ago. As she read Khalid's tale, Tariq felt himself standing beside him in that same library amidst leather-bound spines lined up like silent sentinels, guarding wisdom's gateway to the past or journey he was now a part of through Narjar and his grandmother. In Chapter 17, as Khalid approached an epiphany about unity and diversity within Al-Farabir's people while studying their collective history under flickering candlelight, Tariq felt the same revelation coursing through him, a reminder that his own experiences, too, were threads woven into this historic tapestry. The narrative took an unexpected turn when Khalid discovered a hidden manuscript detailing Al-Farabir's most devastating siege. It spoke of darkness, but not without hope and renewal in the aftermath, a lesson on resilience that mirrored Tariq's own family history. Narjar paused her reading to share a somber note with him. Each tale we tell is both an echo from our past and whispers of futures yet unwritten. She smiled knowingly, as if privy only to the secrets this city had guarded for so long, or secret now entrusted to them. And then came a lull in Narjar's voice, just like when she was taught by her grandmother. It left Tariq with thoughts of his own lineage and legacy he carried within him, but never knew until this moment. As the tales continued, each story a mosaic piece to form an image greater than itself, highlighted Al-Farabir's strength in adversity that resonated so deeply within Tariq's heartstrings as if they were plucked by unseen hands of destiny themselves. As the chapter drew its final lines, Narjar whispered a promise to herself and her beloved city: "We shall guard this legacy with reverence." She closed the chronicles gently that night, knowing well their role was not yet complete, but always in motion, a perpetual storyteller's journey. Tariq too rose from his seat as if reborn into the persona of Khalid, or a younger version of himself long forgotten. He carried with him Al-Farabir's spirit, its lessons and tales etched firmly in memory, a beacon to guide through any storm. And just like that time when Narjar's grandmother had told her stories by the hearthside as a child, Tariq was now part of something far greater than himself. He felt an invincible thread connecting him across ages and hearts alike within Al-Farabir's embrace. The chronicles lay closed beside them that night, sullen witnesses to the unspoken understanding between two souls, sharing stories not just of history but forging a bond over shared humanity through narrative's power. It was more than law and legacy on these pages, as each story became an eternal part of Tariq's own personal chronicler tale that would, when Tariq and Narjar found themselves in a moment of shared silence under Al-Farabir's starlit sky, as if time had paused to honor their connection or silent pact between two guardians of tales past and present. As the night deepened into its velvety folds, Tariq's thoughts journeyed back through history, revisiting his own lineage that intertwined with stories like threads in a tapestry woven by time itself. Narjar felt this bond, too, as she traced her fingertips over the embossed cover of the chronicles, once more their shared vessel for voyages across epochs and emotions alike. Together they opened to an unassigned page where narratives lay dormant but eager to awaken with their return. Chapter after chapter unfolded tales before them that had shaped the essence of Alfarabi histories of love lost and found amid ancient bazaars, echoing footsteps, whispers in desert winds carrying secrets from foregone times to ears tuned by heartstrings. Tariq absorbed every word like parched earth welcomes rain, while Narjar let each anecdote sink into her spirit, an unspoken communion of souls and stories shared across centuries within the realm of the chronicles' bound pages, as if their own histories were eternally entwined with those told. As dawn approached on this significant night, Tariq found himself revisiting a story that had always resonated closest to his heart, whom he recognized not just for its historical significance, but also the personal revelations it harbored about him and Narjar's shared journey of understanding and belonging within Alfarabir's embrace. In this tale, nestled between chapters dedicated to other lives lived in bygone Erastels, where heroes battled not only external foes, but their inner demons as well, Tariq encountered a protagonist whose essence was mirrored with astonishing clarity within himself, Khalid ibn Yazid, the story's young merchant who journeyed to distant lands, seeking fortune and wisdom beyond Alfarabir's borders. It became evident that through following this narrative thread, Tariq had been returning home all along, his spirit a reflection of those before him whose lives were recorded within the chronicler's living bridge across time, connecting generations like rivers flowing into an eternal sea. Narjar watched as tears began to form on the corners of her eyes at Khalid's plight, seeing in it not just another story, but a reflection of what she and Tariq might endure with their own trials within Alfarabir's ever-unfolding saga. The intimacy between reader and tale deepened as they delved into Khalid's experiences, the words painting vivid landscapes that seemed to ripple around them in waves of shared empathy underneath 0W. Tariq closed his eyes for a moment's breath, feeling an indescribable kinship with this fictional soul who had lived so many lifetimes ago. As he exhaled slowly and Narjar felt the warmth from beside him, they knew that their connection to the Chronicles was not merely as readers, but participants in its enduring legacy or testament to humanity's shared experiences, where every heartbeat echoed through history's hallowed hallways. As morning light began filtering into Narjar's window and the promise of a new day beckoned, they understood that their journey with the Chronicles was far from over. It would continue as long as stories needed to breathe life, a perpetual odyssey shared by every soul who sought solace in its embrace. With hearts full and spirits alight with the knowledge of what lay ahead on this adventure, they closed the Chronicles for yet another night, but not before inscribing their own chapter into it, a testament to love's enduring power within Alfarabir's timeless tales. Her promise whispered softly between them as Tariq and Narjar prepared themselves once more for whatever stories might come calling in the days to follow. As they rose together, their shared understanding of the Chronicles, transcending mere words on paper, became a beacon that would guide each step forward into Alfarabir's embrace of city, where every stone and cobblestone told tales as old as time itself, while still whispering promises for the future. With Tariq's memories of Khalid interlaced with Narjar's newfound resolve, they embarked as Tariq and Narjar stepped into Alfarabir's first light embraced them with warmth. They felt as though time itself had come to stand still within these ancient walls, where stories lived at every turn of a street corner or echo in the hollows between buildings. With each cobblestone beneath their feet telling tales from ages past and children playing hide-and-seek around doorways that held secrets, they knew this city was more than just its stone facades. It pulsed with life stories waiting to be discovered anew in the hearts of those who would listen. Their journey had begun years ago under different skies, but now their paths converged once again beneath Alfarabir's azure expanse, as if fated by the very books they held dear, a shared destiny woven through love and literature that bound them together across time and space. Tariq's memories of Khalid flowed effortlessly with Narjar's resolve to write her own legacy within the Chronicles' endless pages, for she knew now the power a personal story held in preserving history, as well as inspiring it anew. Inside Alfarabir lay countless nooks where shadows danced and light played upon forgotten manuscripts, long past their prime but still holding whispers of truth, of love, loss, joy, sorrow, triumph, despair, all the elements that composed human experience as timelessly relevant today as in any age. Tariq felt a kinship with these tales from his childhood and Narjar's youthful dreams. To be part of something greater than herself found resonance within them both, a shared heartbeat syncing with the Chronicles. eternal rhythm. It was at the local bazaar, where they first met, amidst stalls adorned with fabrics that whispered tales from distant lands and spices that carried scents of far-off markets across ocean circumvergence not unlike their own intersecting stories within the chronicle's embrace. Tariq had sought a rare tome for his collection, while Marger was there to find the perfect gift inspired by her experiences with Al-Farabier and its chronicled past. It seemed fated that they would discover each other's treasures in one another amidst this confluence of commerce. Tariq's eyes glimmered as he recognized a leather cover, not for the book itself, but because Narger had carefully sketched her own illustrations alongside his cherished words, her personal touch that bridged their worlds beyond mere narratives into shared humanity's canvas of experience. And so began an exchange where tales were exchanged and hands intertwined beneath Al-Farabiyer's timeless gaze, as if the city itself had conspired to guide them toward this moment inseparable from its own storied existence, their connection that transcended mere happenstance or coincidence. As night's cloak began descending upon Al-Farabier once more and Tariq watched Narder return his gift, he felt a profound understanding of the journey they had shared through the Chronicle's tales. This was not simply about reading but living stories that echoed their own. They knew no as surely as day turns to night in Al-Farabiyer's heartbeat that Tariq and Narger were part of something much larger, a narrative thread woven into the tapestry where every reader played an integral role within its unfolding legend. Within their embrace was both history's echoes and tomorrow's whispered promise. Love's enduring power lay not just in sentiment, but also in shared adventure that would carry them forward on life's story-laden path or journey they had begun together, bound by a tale of mutual discovery amidst Al-Farabiyer's ancient stones. For as long as stories breathed and hearts beat within the Chronicle's folds, Tariq knew their chapter would be penned with love that defied time itself, her declaration inscribed in shared resolve for a future woven from tales of old yet to come, where Al-Farabiyer's enduring spirit continued guiding them, with each step into the city's embrace and every whisper between their lips promising more chapters ahead. They knew that as long as love was written in the chronicles and within themselves, their shared narrative would forever remain a part of Al-Farabi, an unending storybook. The night deepened into the gentle cradle before sleep claimed them one by one. For Tariq and Narger, there as they drifted between consciousness and dreaming states beneath the stars outside their window, Narger turned to him with eyes full of wonderment, reflecting back at her partner through his tender smile or silent promise that this was all just before something extraordinary awaited them beyond tomorrow's light. Tariq understood well. He had always felt a kinship between himself and the city's spirit, which seemed to pulse with life in ways they could feel but never fully explain. One day, Narger murmured softly into his ear as her fingers traced patterns of ancient calligraphy on Tariq's wrist, patterns that he knew were a tribute to their shared journey, "We will write our own chapter in the Chronicles." Her words hung between them like delicate threads weaving through time. "You mean with history as well?" asked Tariq after she took on his breath, and her voice became one thread intertwining seamlessly into another, their shared dreamscape wherein lay a city alive, humming tales of old within its walls that now seemed to echo the footsteps of their ancestors. Narger nodded with assurance as they continued this dialogue in hushed tones between heartbeats and silent sighs. "I believe so," she agreed, her voice barely louder than a whisper. Their fingers clung together tightly. It was within these simple gestures that their unspoken love found its strongest expression or testament to the bonds forged not just between two souls, but also across generations and epochs etched into Al-Farabiyer's soulful essence. "Let us then seek out what fate has in store," Tariq said with a gentle firmness, his resolve as unwavering as the mountains that cradled their city, a resolution he knew they would honor together by venturing into Al-Farabiyer's heart this very morning. The day greeted them with sunshine and possibilities. It was in these golden hours when histories are born, not just read or recounted, but lived as if one were a protagonist within their own tale of epic proportions or story that Tariq knew would continue to be told for generations. As they ventured through the cobbled streets and narrow alleyways where shadows danced with light, Narger took in every sight before her eyes fell upon an old bookshop nestled between two ancient palm trees whose leaves whispered tales of bygone baser sanctuary she could only describe as a place that seemed to beckon them. Inside the shop was where they found it, a dusty leather-bound tome with no title, its pages yellowed from age and guardianship over secrets untold for centuries. Tariq recognized these symbols of knowledge or treasure he had often read about in stories told by his grandfather. Narger's hands trembled as she opened the book to a page marked on purpose only when they touched, revealing an intricate map that mirrored Al-Farabi itself, with hidden paths leading toward untold histories and forgotten legacies. "Shall we seek what lies beyond this road less traveled?" Tariq asked as his heart raced at the thought of a mystery unfolding before them, one where history seemed to reach out through time for their discovery and adventure that neither had anticipated but felt destined by Al-Farabi's enigmatic pull. As they traced paths laid upon ancient parchment with fingertips guided not just by curiosity, by a connection deeper than blood or love, it was as if their journey through time and space sought to reveal truths that the world beyond Al-Farabi's embrace had forgotten. The map led them beneath twisted roots of trees planted long before they drew breath, where stories etched into bark spoke in a language older than words, yet understood by those who listened with more ears, their senses attuned to the symphony that was Al-Farabi's soul. The morning dew on Al-Farabi's ancient Kabbalist zero K felt cool against Tariq and Narger's skin as they ventured into a part of town seldom tread upon, guided by their shared determination to uncover the mysteries locked within an age-old map. The air hummed with whispers from generations past, secrets that had lain dormant for centuries and now seemed poised on the brink of revelation through Tariq's keen eye and Narger's intuitive nature. As they followed a serpentine path leading deeper into an overgrown thicket bordering Al-Farabi, each step took them further from modernity and closer to their ancestral roots, or journey that promised both trepidation and exhilarating discovery. The map's enigmatic symbols hinted at a place where history's heartbeat still echoed through the soil of Al-Farabi, beneath twisted olive trees whose gnarled limbs seemed to beckon them onward with silent strength and wisdom imbued by time. In this forgotten grove stood an ancient well, its stone structure mossy green from years, untouched by the sun's direct gaze. Narger approached it hesitantly, as if sensing that within these waters lay more than just refreshing H2O. They held a connection to generations past and knowledge yet unfathomed. As she knelt before its base, Tariq joined her side. Their fingers brushed against the cool stone in unison with an accidental mark upon the map's paper counterpart that felt as though it had waited eons for this very moment of contact or silent agreement between seeker and guide to embark on a deeper exploration. The well, which seemed almost like sentient being among ruins lost in time, revealed its secret with an unassuming trickle rather than the powerful gush Tariq had anticipated. Yet within this humble sound lay undiscovered depths of history that resonated through their very essence. Narger reached for a stone pebble nearby and dropped it into the well's center, watching as ripples expanded outward until they settled back to stillness or visual echo that mirrored how Al-Farabi itself had been touched by events of old yet remained largely unaltered in its present form. Guided now not just by physical senses, but also a growing connection with the past, Tariq and Narger continued down an overgrown pathway lined with flowers that seemed to bloom only at nightfall, or nocturnal blossoming of nature's own mysterious timepiece. The air carried subtle scents known not just as aromas, but whispers from history, each breath infused with tales waiting patiently for them by the wayside on this moonlit journey through Al-Farabi's heart, or place where secrets and Leger 01 essays blossomed alongside nightshade. Past an ancient archway carved into stone that bore inscriptions faded from time, they found themselves in a clearing crowned by the majestic visage of Al-Farabi's guardian statue, an imposing figure clad more as myth than history, its eyes reflective pools holding not just light, but centuries. The very air seemed to pulse with stories, and Tariq felt his heart sink with it in a silent communion that transcended language. The past was alive within him now, reaching out through veils of time for recognition by those whose blood carried its echoes, those like Narger, who were ready to listen. Within this sacred space stood an open field where once children had played and families gathered in communal revelry, all under Al-Farabi's watchful gaze that spanned epochs untold. Here was the very essence of history, a place without beginning or end, but simply to be lived within its embrace. As Tariq's hand hovered over an ancient sundial whose shadow had long ceased marking hours, yet somehow still pointed them forward on their path through time and discovery, It offered direction not just in space, but spiritually. As the sun began to dip below the horizon's edge signaling evening's approach, Tarek noticed a peculiar stone formation that mirrored constellations etched into Al-Farabir's ancient skyliner celestial map of sorts, guiding them through not just physical space, but metaphysical understanding. Narder stepped forward with the sensitivity inherited from her mother's lineage, reaching out to trace alignments that in Chapter 22 of Tarek and Narder's journey through time within Al-Farabir, they found themselves standing in a clearing where once laughter had melded with chirping cicadas under moonlit Skeezer Place that seemed to hum with the very essence of life itself. The ancient sundial before them was not merely an artifact, but appeared as if it were imbued with spirits from ages past, its gnomon casting a shadow onto their path in silent guidance through both temporal and spiritual realms. As they stood within this hallowed ground, where history's heart had beaten strongest during the days of Al-Farabir's Riegna city that now thrived only as memory, Tarek felt an overwhelming sense of connection to everything around him. It was a sensation so potent he could feel himself not just touching history, but becoming part of its continuum. The air seemed alive with whisperings from centuries long gone, and yet, untouched by time's decayed breeze carried voices, each rustle bore tales that danced upon the edges of their consciousness like motes in sunlight. Narder's eyes reflected a light not seen since childhood summers spent beneath Al-Farabir skies. Her heart beat with an echo from generations before and those yet to come, resonating within her as she followed the sundial's silent directions that seemed to weave through epochs like threads of silk. Together they traced their fingers along patterns in the earth, where children had once played, patterns unrecognizable now but no less integral to understanding Al-Farabir's history and its cyclical nature, as if each step forward was a turn backward into tradition that birthed them both anew. With every touch upon ancient stones or brush of fingers against weather-worn inscriptions, their connection deepened until they could almost hear the very words etched in stone speaking directly to their souls, imparting secrets not meant for modern ears, but just as urgent and vital today. Tarek felt he was partaking in an age-old conversation between his people and time itself. As if sensed by Narder's ancestral intuition, sundial's guidance brought them to a grand fountain, once the heart of Al-Farabir, where families had gathered not just for water, but communal unity, now silent save for memories cascading down its mossy ledges. They sat by this forgotten wellspring and shared in hushed tones stories that transcended their own lives, tales from the cities, grand bazaars where spices had once blended into symphonies of scent, no just whispers among reeds overgrown with wildflowers. Here, beneath an ancient olive tree rooted firmly in this sacred space, Tarek realized that his journey was not about discovering the past, but rediscovering himself within its embrace, for history had always been a mirror through which he could glimpse into both Narder's heritage and his own soul. As night's curtain began to draw close with stars taking their places in Al-Farabir's celestial map, reflecting upon the sundial stone before the nadir, spoke of constellations that told stories not just of gods or heroes, but familial bonds and personal quests. These same patterns had guided her forebears on their journey from distant lands to settle this once celebrated city. In the reflection, within a nearby pond, shaped by water's natural artistry since time immemorial, their reflections joined those of Al-Farabir's own people who had walked these same paths, for in their eyes lay not just themselves, but entire lifetimes lived and yet to unfold beneath the watchful gaze of stars that shone down upon them as if through history's very lens. Tarek whispered gratitude to Al-Farabir, this city whose spirit had been his constant companion on every step, its essence now intertwined with Narder's blood and their shared humanity. As the constellations moved across the sky in silent vigil above them both, their journey through time felt not like an endless traverse but a pilgrimage towards understanding, connection, healing of hearts long woven by threads unseen yet omnipresent throughout history's tapestry. Every sense within Tarek and Narder was awakened to the profound interconnectedness that bound them all. And so they stood in Al-Farabir once more. The two friends continued along a winding path edged by ancient, gnarled trees whose roots had been entangling and supporting one another for centuries more than they could remember or fathom. Beneath the dappling sunlight filtering through high canopies overhead, a perfect metaphor of life's unpredictable beauty despite its darkness, garden whispered to them in rustles, petals caresses, and leaves brushing against their legs with every gentle breeze that came by. In the heart of this verdant wonder lay a serene pond encircled by blooming lotus flowers, symbolizing purity above murky depths below, an emblem for life's dual nature in constant transformation and rebirth. Narja dipped her fingers into its cool waters, feeling an immediate sense of release, as if the ripples were carrying away old sorrows with each wave sent forth by Tariq's playful splashes beside her. It was near this pond that they discovered a time-worn sundial adorned not just with intricate carvings, but also Rem 052769 cricket irons, depicting celestial patterns and mythic tales, which resonated deeply within them, both an anchor to the past firmly rooted in their present. As they traced its engravings with fingertips that trembled ever so slightly from emotion's touch, Narja recounted legends of old where these constellations were believed not only to guide travelers, but also protect families and individuals through trials by shedding light on ancestral wisdom. They spoke in hushed tones about how the stars had once been omens for their people, guides, guardians, even as they now sat beneath them together again after years of solitude or distance within Al-Farabir's embrace. Tariq and Narja felt a bond that transcended time, like an invisible thread woven through generations. As the twilight began to deepen into night, their conversation turned towards reflections on life's ebb and flow, how it was not unlike the rise and fall of tides they had witnessed as children when passing near this same pond, where now they stood hand in hand with shared secrets. Amidst tales told in hushed reverence to Al-Farabir's historical grandeur, Tariq unveiled a family heirloom or locket containing an old photograph that depicted his grandmother as she was when youthful and vibrant. Her eyes seemed alive with stories yet unfolding. Narja's hand moved to trace the outlines of faces etched on time-worn stone around them, understanding dawning upon her features much like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. There were lives here entangled in ways they had never considered before, as mere visitors steeped within Al-Farabir's fold. Together under the watchful eyes of constellations that spoke tales from epochs when kings ruled and heroes embarked on quests for glory, Tariq confided in Narja about his dream to restore parts of this city they both held dear, their souls echoing with a sense of purpose renewal. She listened intently as he shared anecdotes passed down through generations, stories that spoke not only of the land but also of resilience and hope, for Al-Farabir had faced its share of trials, by fire both literal and metaphorical. As night sky became a tapestry embroidered with stars upon which they could trace ancestral lineage back to when this city was not just home but the very heartbeat of civilization, Tariq unveiled his plan for revival projects that aimed at reinvigorating Al-Farabir's cultural legacy. His vision included art installations inspired by ancient tales and practices, while Narja offered her knowledge, her voice, a bridge spanning across the chasm of time to bring forth lost craftsmanship skills once treasured here but forgotten in modern times, now ready for rediscovery as part of their shared mission. Their conversation grew deeper into philosophy, questions about destiny and free will that danced around them like fireflies on a summer, as Tariq and Narja's voices lowered to hushed tones beneath a crescent moon that seemed like it might never wane. They shared secrets whispered only for them by nightfall, their breath mingling with the cool air of Al-Farabir. The city was dormant now. Its ancient stones absorbed tales as old as time itself into their very essence, and in this moment Tariq felt like he could touch those stories through his dreams to restore life back to these silent sentinels. "Remember the story of Ibn Sina?" Narja asked softly, her eyes reflecting 1,000-year-old wisdom as she traced constellations with an outstretched finger that moved in time's delicate dance across their shared map on ancient parchment. Tariq nodded. He had heard it from his grandfather and knew its moral wealth, that the pursuit of knowledge was akin to tending one's soul, ever growing towards enlightened zero and C, just as Al-Farabir reached for her skyward aspirations. The story tells us that in seeking answers beyond our comprehension lies true wisdom, Tariq murmured, his voice carrying a weight of reverence and promise, intertwined with the gentle hum of night insects, serenading them into deeper dreamscapes. He envisioned art installations not as mere decoration, but as living vessels for stores or symbiosis, where each sculpture captured an essence or character that once walked these cobbled streets, their laughter and sorrows embedded within the very clay they shaped by hand under Narja's tutelage. As he sketched designs in dust-covered notebook beside her resting on a stone bench, their dream taking form through parchment lines, as if each stroke were guided by an unseen muse of creativity itself, they talked about the spirits that walked before them and how their echoes could be felt pulsing beneath Al-Farabir's skin. Larger shared tales where heroism was not in grand gestures but found within everyday acts, or baker who kneaded dough with love for his village, or a seamstress whose needlework whispered of hope and color into the lives around her, binding community like thread through fabric to form an indomitable tapestry. Their dialogue meandered from tales of valorous knights defending their cities, gates under starlit skies against marauders with eyes as dark as pitch-black night, towards discussions on the interconnectedness between humanity and nature, where they pondered how Al-Farabir had once lived in harmony with its surroundings. Tariq thought of gardens that were not just seen but felt, where flowers bloomed to greet each soul as if acknowledging their shared journey through life's seasons, the air perfumed by herbs cultivated for both healing and enjoyment, whispering secrets only those who truly listened could hear, as hours slipped quietly into one another like sand trickling down an hourglass of time unbound from earthly constraints. Tariq spoke to Nardia about his desire not just to remember, but also imagine a city reborn, where history's heartbeat resonated with the vibrant pulses of modern aspirations. They dreamt together as a plan began taking shape in their shared consciousness, art installations that told stories, gardens alive with whispered legends, and wisdom passed down through generations, or place for people to wander, paths lined not only by history but also guided by the light of present-day resilience. In this dreamscape, where reality seemed as fluid as water yet held a sense of permanency like stone, Tariq envisioned himself standing beside Nardir in Al-Farabir's revived marketplace, or bazaar teeming with life and color that celebrated every era it had endured. They spoke to the walls themselves. They asked them for stories, as if conversing with an old friend, about times when their stones felt warmth beneath sunlight rather than cold in moonbeams, recalling a world where laughter echoed through alleyways instead of silence settling between bricks and mortar. "We will make art that speaks to the soul," Nardir said, with newfound determination sparking within her eyes as she envisioned pottery pots glazed in hues reminiscent of Al-Farabir's golden age, each telling a story through its form and color. "We will bring back craftsmanship that once defined this place." Tariq agreed. The marketplace was always a place where life unfolded. Nardir mused, her voice hushed but full with reverence for what once thrived here, humming crossroads of cultures and commerce under the same sun that now bathed their dreams in hopeful light. Tariq nodded. They both knew it wasn't just nostalgia fueling them, but a yearning to reinvigorate those lost narratives into something tangible for future hearts to cherish as well. They settled beneath the shade of an old fig tree whose roots had witnessed centuries pass, and found themselves sketching out designs on napkins that they'd brought along, or palette where ideas flowed like watercolors in a stream, blending into vibrant visions of pottery with stories etched into every curve. The trees seemed to lean closer, as if eager listeners already nestled comfortably upon the earth below them. Nardir's fingers danced across her sketches, each line a promise or commitment that art in Al-Farabir would not just mimic history but converse with it and sing back its own tune of resilience and renewal. "These pots will be more than vessels," she declared to the breeze, as though reciting an incantation, her words threading through Tariq's thoughts like a melody that echoed within him to a symphony composed with clay on Al-Farabir's soul. Together they gathered materials, earth from their beloved market square for the base of each pot, river silt, smooth and fine as silk yet firm enough to support form, natural fibers that would bind these elements into vessels imbued with stories rather than mere utility. As Tariq selected a slender reed to serve as stakes within their pots, or symbolic routing in the community's essence while allowing for growth and change, he watched children playing tag around them. Laughter that could still be heard if one listened closely enough became part of his inspiration. As they worked side by side on a mound of clay beneath an easel where Nardir painted scenes from Al-Farabir's past or bustling bazaar, the lively chatter within its walls during festivals and fair days and more tranquil seasons alike. The brushstrokes were deliberate but tender as they captured colors that had once danced freely through this place, deep cerulean blues of market skies, emerald greens from gardens where whispers turned to wisdom, telling tales only the earth could articulate in its own silent way. The sun dipped lower into a fiery horizon as Tariq and Narger's hands were stained with clay, an indelible mark of their labour that spoke more eloquently than words ever could about Alfarabir's soulful spirit, now reborn in earthenware. A mosaic pot stood complete on the ground before them, each swirl and line a chapter from history they had conjured to fair voices, softly commanding it to embody not just their dream, but also echoes of Alfarabir's own heartbeat, its joys and sorrows alike. "We will stand strong against the tide," Tariq said firmly as he carved an inscription into a piece destined for public space or declaration to be read under sunlight that would warm it through time until moonlit evenings, when lovers might whisper secrets within its hollows. Narja added her own mark, and together they sealed their vow with the kiss of fire upon glaze, each pot a capsule for stories past and present, bridging eras like roots beneath ancient stones firmly grounded yet reaching towards unseen futures above them. As nightfall draped her velvet cloak over Alfarabir, Tariq and Narja walked the empty streets once more, their steps echoing in hollow silence as they contemplated how to bring this vision into reality, to share with others a place where art became an invitation for souls to stroll through time. They envisioned galleries that would, in chapter 26 of their tale, as Tariq and Narja wandered through Alfarabir's empty streets under a starlit sky that promised countless stories yet to unfold, they found themselves at an ancient site where the roots ran deep, a forgotten garden once cherished by scholars. Here lay remnants of history whispering tales untold. Pottery shards among roses and ivy served as silent witnesses to centuries gone by. The pair paused before a mosaic that seemed almost sentient, its myriad colors reflecting the moonlight in an ethereal dance across Tariq's face. A grin of pure contentment spread through his eyes at their discovery. Narger's hand rested absently on her chest as she shared this moment with him. As they traced patterns imprinted by time upon weather-beaten tiles, an idea began to germinate in the fertile soil of Tariq's imagination, a proposal that would breathe life into forgotten whispers and echoes through Alfarabir's public spaces once more. "Our art," he said softly with a twinkle, "can be like water for thirsty souls wandering in this arid city of our memories." Narger nodded slowly as their shared dream took on vivid form. They would create an outdoor gallery where the air hummed not just with art, but also life, or place that invited visitors to step into history, touch its essence, and perhaps find a reflection within. With purpose in their hearts, Tariq sketched designs for interactive installations while Narger collected stories from local elders. Both knew they must capture the soul of Alfarabir's past with delicate threads to weave into this tapestry of time that lay before the man, undertaking as daunting as it was exhilarating. They spoke little, but often, their dialogue a symphony in itself. Tariq's words painted visions, while Narja anchored these dreams with practicalities and connections to the community's heartbeat that had shaped Alfarabir for ages untold. They met frequently at this ancient garden, their conversations often meandering through subjects from philosophy to folklore, a testament to Tariq's enduring love of wisdom and Narger's reverence for the people who lived here before them. Together they became guardians of a legacy that demanded respect yet yearned to be shared with all generations. The next morning, as dew still clung like memories too precious to let go, Tariq sketched murals on large stones, historic scenes where Alfarabir's people lived and loved. Narger's fingers danced over reclaimed wood from which they would carve figures of the past into tables for storytellers. They gathered materials with a reverence befitting sacred rites, aware that every pottery shard polished to perfection or stone smoothed by hand was but an echo of history's indelible imprint upon their own spirits, or linked not just between eras, but hearts too connected across time's expanse. Their shared labor became a pilgrimage for the soul. They unearthed and restored ancient artifacts that had lain forgotten in attics or beneath floors of homes long crumbled to dust around Alfarabir, each piece an enigma wrapped within layers, awaiting revelation. Tariq's hands shaped earthenware with the reverence one might give a holy relic. Narger's eyes gleamed as they transformed these silent testimonies into vessels of narrative and history, to cradle in her motherly arms for all who would listen by their side, sharing whispered secrets. As seasons shifted from green sprouts to amber leaves that danced upon the wind before winter's embrace took hold once more, Tariq and Narger's dream matured into reality. They had not only created an outdoor gallery but also a living archive of Al-Farabi, a place where art was both window to bygone times and mirror reflecting back the soul. The first visitors found themselves in their midst, drawn as if magnetized by Tariq's mistakes that seemed alive with history's breath. Narder welcomed them warmly into her heart-crafted nooks, where they could touch relics of yesteryears or sit upon a bench carved from wood once home to generations untold. Each visitor left the gallery touched by something intangibler thread spun as twilight descended upon Al-Farabi, with a painter's palette of purples and golds. Tariq and Narder stood amidst their living gallery, a testament to history now immortalized through artistry in clay and earth. The cool evening whispered secrets as softly crinkled leaves rustled underfoot. The air was thick with nostalgia woven into every breath, a serenade for souls wandering near their sacred ground of creativity. Narder's voice had become an instrument itself since she began to share tales alongside her handcrafted nooks or cradle, where history's heartbeat pulsed with each narrated secret and every artifact that nestled in the palm of a willing listener. Her stories were not just retellings, but recreations, breathing life back into the past as she spoke to her audience on evenings like this one, her congregation drawn by curiosity or seeking solace within their sanctuary's embrace. The first visitors often arrived with trepidation before realizing they stood amidst a pilgrimage for souls, where each relic held not just history, but also the power to transform understanding into feeling, into shared humanity across time's vast expanse. Tariq had been their conduit from dust and silence. His mistakes were more than mere decorations on earthenware or stonework that adorned pathways, each tile a whisper of lives once lived with the breath he imparted upon them through delicate touches as they placed themselves in place. As seasons cycled from verdant promise to autumnal flame and back again before winter's quiet shroud settled over Al-Farabi, Tariq's art continued its silent dialogue with those who paused within the gallery of living archives, or chronicle unfurling in each gaze upon his handiwork. And Narder welcomed them always into her heart, where once might have been mere onlookers now became participants as they traced fingers over textures that bore witness to ages past, feeling for themselves the texture of histories lived and lost within this small pocket universe under Tariq's watchful mistakes. The air was always a mixed scent of clay from Narder's hands intermingling with earth after rain when she prepared her nooks or brought forth artifacts to be shared, each relic an invitation into stories untold until this very moment in time and space where their artistry met the eye. Tariq would often find himself lost for words as his mistakes seemed almost ethereal beneath moonlight's caress. They spoke of a history that transcended mere visual appreciation, inviting onlookers to see themselves reflected through windows into lives once live, a mirror where one might recognize the essence within. Winter's approach often brought fewer visitors, but never dwindling spirits, for Tariq and Narder knew their work could not be measured by numbers alone. It was about connection, a shared human experience that transcended time itself, as if they were unraveling threads of history to reveal themselves. The snow blanketed Al-Farabi in silence once more until the cycle turned anew with spring's tender promise, a reminder that their gallery was but one moment within a continuum where art and memory coalesced, bridging past lives into present hearts through stories shared under starlight or sunbeam alike. As night deepened its hues across Al-Farabi's skyline, the first visitor of this evening approached Tariq's mosaic centerpiece, a scene frozen in time that seemed to pulse with a life all its own under the stars overhead. A woman paused before it, her eyes traced over each meticulous curve and line as if reading braille inscribed by history itself, feeling for Tariq's touch among his silent language of colorous or visual symphony played upon earthen canvases that held within them whispers from a time when Al-Farabi was not yet known to the modern world. Narder noticed her approach before she reached out, with open arms and gentle words, welcoming this seeker into their nook where history's heartbeat resonated strongest, her place of communal reverence for all that had been lost but never forgotten within Al-Farabi. She shared stories woven around Tariq's mistakes, tales spun from the loom of time, each thread a lifeline back to souls once tethered here, upon this very soil, where they too could find solace in as Narder's voice trailed off with a contented sigh that seemed to echo through Al-Farabi. She felt her own heartbeat synchronize for but an instant with hers, her poignant connection shared between two kindred spirits in their communion of tales and colors. The woman before them stood still, the weighty silence following Narjar's stories pressing upon her like a warm embrace around her shoulders, urging her forward into Tariq's mistake world where time seemed to stand as witness against its own relentless march onward, a constant undercurrent in their shared reverence for all that had been both lost and forever imprinted within the city's soul. Narjar gestured with her hands, guiding them along invisible lines of narrative woven into Tariq's creations. It was as if she could see themselves standing side by side in an era long past, but never wholly gone from memory, a time when Al-Farabiyer's streets hummed with the footsteps of merchants, minstrels, and wandering poets. Through her telling voice spun threads that wove together a rich tapestry embodying every hue Tariq had laid upon his mosaic floor, the vibrant reds evoking sunsets over ancient Al-Farabiyer's markets, the deep blues mirroring waves of its once bustling rivers. The woman before them was mesmerized. Her fingers traced patterns in dust as if to unearth secrets hidden beneath layers of earth and time, or silent communion with Tariq's work that seemed almost spiritual, a dialogue between artist and observer transcending language barriers. Narjar spoke softly now, recounting tales not just about the mosaic, but also about Al-Farabiyyah itself. She detailed its evolution from humble origins to an emblem of cultural pride or city, where every stone held a story as deep and complex as Tariq's artwork. Her narrative wove through stories of families whose lives intertwined with the very existence of Al-Farabiyyah, each tale painting vivid pictures that danced before Narjar's audience, a living embodiment of history itself, speaking directly to them under a sky touched by both moonlight and sunbeam. Together they stood in contemplation as night whispered its way across the landscapes below, stories unfurling like ribbons around their intertwined fingers, binding each visitor with Al-Farabiyyah's heartstrings, or silent promise that through Tariq's mistakes and Narjar's tales they would always find a piece of themselves here. As the first light hinted at dawn on horizon far removed from their nook beneath stars past midnight, the woman felt an indescribable warmth swell within her, a shared sense with all who had passed through Tariq's art that Al-Farabiyyah was a place of timeless refuge. With one last look upon the mosaic scene before them, she reached out to touch it gently. In doing so, felt as if brushing against threads spun by fate itself, her connection to souls once tethered here and hearts still beating within its embrace even now when history lay dormant beneath a blanket of sleep. As the first rays caressed their faces and lightened Narjar's lashes, she knew that this evening had brought something vital, or kindling spark in her guest's eyes, as if to say Al-Farabiyyah will always be remembered even amidst a city lost beneath layers of modernity. With the grace bestowed by Tariq's legacy and the stories Narjar shared, their souls found solace not just within this nook but also in each other, a testament that history is never truly forgotten when hearts like these listen closely enough to hear its whispered tales amidst starlight or sunbeam. And so as they bid farewell under a sky blushing with the first light of day, Narjar and her guest carried within them not just memories, but also reassurance, or promise that Al-Farabiyyah would continue to live through stories shared by those who remember its heartbeat in times long past. For as they walked away from Tariq's mosaic centerpiece, the city itself seemed to whisper back a gentle thank you, for tonight it had gifted them with not just sight, but also sensation or touch of history that would linger within their being like an indelible imprint upon soul and stone alike. As dawn's light began to break through Tariq's mosaic window, casting intricate patterns upon Narjar and her guest, they remained nestled in their nook of history, a hidden garden surrounded by the echoes of ancient footsteps. The cool touch of stone beneath them seemed almost sentient, as if it understood that this was a place where time held its breath for just long enough to share tales untouched by modernity's relentless march forward. Narjar, with Tariq's memories flowing through her like water from an eternal spring, recounted stories of the city during times when Al-Farabiyyah had been more than just a name on old parchment. It was life itself, here in this corner, turned into legend. She spoke softly to Khalid's guest about how Tariq's father used his mosaic art as an act of preservation, each tile capturing the essence of Al-Farabiyyah and ensuring its spirit never faded away even when it wasn't meant to last. Their fingers brushed lightly over one another's faces now caked with dusting rose gold from Tariq's mother, as Narjar shared her childhood memories of playing hide-and-seek amongst the ruins that loomed like silent guardians around their nook, or testament to times when children could explore without fear. Khalid listened raptly, his eyes reflecting a reverence for these stories as if they were sacred threads weaving through him and Narger's sheer history of the city's soulful past. As Khalid absorbed every word, he felt himself partaking in an act older than both their lineages and unspoken pact to remember that which seeks refuge from oblivion within stories told by those who dare listen closely enough amidst echoes or beneath starlit skies. The city's heartbeat seemed almost palpable, as if the walls of Al-Farabi itself whispered secrets through Narger's tales, or symphony only heard when voices rise in unison to honor what was and could have been again by choice or chance. A reminder that history is not just about dates etched into stone, but about connections made under moonlit skies. As their shared memories unfolded, it became evident the bond they formed here in this nook of Tariq's home, where time seemed suspended within layers of dust, and dreaming light would become a part of them as much as any brick or cobblestone from Al-Farabir's ancient streets. As morning approached, the city began to stir with life anew. Vendors started their day calling out names for fresh produce, while children's laughter echoed down narrow lanes where once only silence prevailed under cover of nightfall. The modern world continued its ceaseless rhythm outside Tariq's mosaic-laden door, but within these walls history breathed her silent guardian over the continuance of tales, and let us off their souls woven into a shared tapestry that neither time nor change could unravel. Khalid's guest glanced out at Tariq's city one last time before they departed, his heart swelling with gratitude for the gift Narger had given him a night when history embraced them and whispered of eternity through her stories until their eyes could no longer hold onto it. And so as the first golden beams reached across the horizon to greet Tariq's mosaic-laden threshold, they stepped out into a world that neither knew nor remembered how fragile life truly was, and understanding only found when hearts listened closely enough amidst starlight or sunbeam. They left Al-Farabi not just as travelers, but transformed by the heart of it all, their spirits enriched with memories, a promise to carry forward into the world beyond that they had been given an imprinter sensation so profoundly indelible upon soul and stone alike. It was here in this nook where Tariq's mosaic art stood proud against time's erosion outside its walls, a beacon of history remembered not just by names on parchment, but felt through shared human connection and echo, that would resonate within Khalid and his guest long after they ventured back into the modern maze. For as much as Al-Farabir was lost beneath layers of progress, it had gifted them a treasure beyond gold or jewels, for in its heartbeat the streets were quiet save for echoes of footsteps that danced from the cobblestones, an ancient tune played by hands unseen and instruments long silent, filling their ears with melodies as old as Al-Farabir itself. The city held secrets in every shadowed alleyway they wandered, whispering walls that told tales of forgotten loves and lost dreams under the watchful gaze of moonlit statues frozen mid-smile or frown, their expressions locked with souls long departed but never truly gone. Underneath Al-Farabir's canopy, where even time dared not tread without reverence for those who walked before them, they found themselves lost in the rhythm of history, a tempo that beat to a different pulse than modern life ever could muster. The air was thick with stories untold and wisdom woven into every brick and beam. It hummed beneath their skin as if each stone were alive itself, sharing ancient secrets only heard when hearts are open amidst the caress of light or darkness alike. As they ventured deeper within Al-Farabir's heart, where history embraced them with an affection that seemed to transcend time and space, Tariq stumbled upon a hidden garden or sanctuary untouched by the world beyond their doorstep in this historical haven. It was here they discovered Narger once more, her presence as comforting as sunlight filtering through old tapestries draped over arches made of twisted metal and stone, with the thin trees that wept dew instead of leaves upon touch by night's chill fingers or morning's tender warmth. Narger spoke to them now not just in words, but with the essence of every story she had ever shared, a mosaic tapestry sewn from threads spun through countless lifetimes, her voice a gentle lullaby that could soothe even time's most turbulent heart. She gifted Tariq and Khalid each an object, one small enough to fit within the palm of their hand, yet as enduring as Al-Farabir itself for peace from his mosaic art, a fragment imbued with memories that now coursed through them like life force. As they lay in Narger's bed made not just for resting, but communion amongst the echoes of eras long past and futures yet to be penned by human hands alone, their hearts swelled as one with gratitude, understanding that this night had etched upon their souls a story much larger than themselves. The city slept around them, its restless heartbeats quieting down beneath the blanket of stars above and stories shared below. Al-Farabir was not lost to time, but found within Tariq's mosaic art, that now stood proud against it, a beacon for others who sought refuge in history's embrace as much as they had done themselves, a place where the past lived on through connection and remembrance. In this nook of eternity their spirits found what gold could never buy or jewels ever shine, an imprint upon each other's heartbeat that resonated in harmony with Al-Farabir itself, a shared human bond transcending the mere material and reaching into realms where souls touch without words, but feel through every moment spent under starlight. They rose not just as travelers, for they had journeyed far beyond their physical selves. Instead, Tariq and Khalid stepped out of Al-Farabir, changed not only with the gift Narjar had given them in her stories, but also through a promise to carry forward echoes from this place where history whispered eternity. For though they would eventually leave behind these cobbled streets that sang, their spirits remained forever imprinted within Al-Farabir's heart and on the very souls of those who might wander into its embrace one day to listen closely enough amidst starlight or sunbeam